The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber. So I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
Welcome back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network. You can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com.
That was when Anthony LaFanta got absolutely annihilated by that one waitress at the next bar. That was the greatest moment. We're in, are we on the air? No.
Save it for the air.
Yeah.
Always save the good stories. Okay, We're starting with the story about, by the way, Anthony LaPanta subbed for me last week. I'm sure he did a better job than I ever do. I appreciate him being here.
First of all, thanks for listening to the podcast, because I was kind of the sub for you.
And to thank Anthony, we're going to tell a story that will embarrass Anthony LaPanta. That's kind of how we roll, for better or worse.
But I did realize that actually being in that seat is tough. It's hard. Like, Anthony wouldn't shut up.
Yes.
It's kind of like me.
Yes, Michael, this is a hard job. Yeah. Yes, I can. Usually, depending on who you're sitting next to.
I'd look over every once in a while from Brandon, and he'd be like, "Can you say one of the sponsors, please?" You know, it was like giving me that signal. And I definitely didn't do it as seamlessly as you. So I'm impressed. I always thought you were just a placeholder there. But no, you do a good job.
I'm a quality placeholder. That's always been my aspiration.
Yeah, I was just talking to Annette and John back there. We were reminiscing about a story at the Hoffer House, because a lot of people are eating their giant, scrumptious-looking pretzels here at the.
They're larger than flotation devices.
Yeah. They are
huge.
gigantic. And so we were talking about, because that's what they serve at the Hoffer House in Munich. And then we had a funny little moment where I understood what they were saying. I won't say that part of the story on the air, but I'll show you pictures after of the story. But then we went to the second bar, and Anthony LaPanta, there was this waitress that right away picked up on the fact that he's obnoxious, and so she could not have been meaner. It was hilarious. It was just snapped at him, and there were all sorts of stuff that happened, right? She just could not have been meaner. She was absolutely hated him, and I really could. I appreciated it. So,
no, I didn't listen to the show.
And that was her first minute meeting him. Just imagine knowing him as long as I have.
So what's that like?
Yeah. Anyway,
what's it like knowing Anthony LaPanta and you guys spend a lot of time together.
Yeah, I mean.
So how do you survive that?
I don't know. It's expensive, I'll tell you that. Can't we just go to a Chipotle once? But it's a lot of dinners on the road, a lot of wine. And yet, hey, I do it to myself. We're doing the fourth or fourth? Me the fourth, third, and him the third. Defined Destinations Europe trip this summer. We're going to Vienna, which is it was just named the most livable city in the world, I think.
If you have a boat.
Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
Saying that right? And then Budapest and Prague. So that's absolutely going to be awesome. So our mutual friend, Andrew McCain, just texted me. He's in Jupiter. He's a professional golfer. He's in Jupiter training for the winter. And he just texted me that Ryan Whitney is coming down to his club to play golf with them for like 2 weeks in the next couple. So he's just fired up.
Given the fact that
I'm only saying that because here see what I'm looking at, but Ryan Whitney New Amsterdam vodka commercial is on TV there.
I root for Andrew because I would love to have a local angle when I go cover the Masters, the U.S. Open. I would love to have a local person I could go cover because that makes it a lot of fun. And Andrew's a hell of a golfer. All right, let's introduce the show now that we've babbled for a while. This is the Russo Hockey Show, part of the TalkNorth.com podcast network. Follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod. Check out the new website that Brandon redesigned for us at TalkNorth.com. We're going to be rolling out some new shows in the next month.
We have a website?
Oh, we have a website. And it's a good place to find, sometimes people come to the shows late, especially like Roy Smalley. Roy Smalley tells these stories about Yogi Berra and honeymooning with Paul McCartney. I mean, he tells these great stories. They're all archived there. Or if you just can't get enough Russo, I don't know what's wrong with you, but if you can't get enough Russo, you can go there and you get old shows there. Easy place to look everything up. Again, see all the new shows. Thank you to Tin Shed. We're at Tin Shed in Savage tonight, tinshedmn.com. And Brian from Tin Shed will be giving away wild tickets later. As we always tell you, you have to be here to enter. You have to be here to win. Luckily, a lot of people are here. I'm sure we'll be giving away tickets later. We'll do that about halfway through the show. tinshedmn.com. Check out their menu. Check out their deals, their coupons, their buy one, get one free, all their specials, their happy hours. Thanks to our other sponsors, Twill and the Edina Galleria, Grey Duck Vodka, Fixology Repair, Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent, Champlin, and, of course, thank you to Brandon for doing all the work he does for the network. You're into art.
Yeah, I got a bunch of... I've had... first of all, I've ruined all my walls. Not with the art, but I decided to, instead of using a magic eraser, I saw all these black marks. I decided to do a little touch-up painting. That's gonna. Now I have to repaint every wall in the house. I mean, it is unbelievable. How does the same color paint not blend in? I don't get it. What's the science between this? Can you come over and paint?
That's why he's mentioning this, so somebody will volunteer to come paint his
I should
walls.
ask Brian Dahl's
This
wife
is why
to come
the only
over
reason he does a podcast is to get help on his home improvements.
Yeah. If we have any painting companies that want to sponsor the show and come on over and paint my walls. So that didn't go well. But I bought a bunch of art from Josh Driver, who I've told you about it before. I think it's joshdriverphotography.com. If it's not joshdriverphotography.com, it's joshuadriver.photography.com. But he's that guy I think I talked about a couple months ago that I've been going to this restaurant, Mark's in Stillwater, and I was like they have all these pictures on this sort of glass type frame that he's taken in downtown Minneapolis and then the North Shore and then other places like that. And it just kind of reminded me of where I moved from because I lived in downtown Minneapolis for, 13 or 14 years up until I moved to the burbs. Of course, I had him over to buy 2 pieces, and next thing I know, I bought 11. So
Did he sell you any wood watches?
And then I made him hang them all up because I don't know how to do anything. So... Now I might have to ask him to paint my place.
So how many different pictures of hockey pucks do you have hanging in your
house? No,
nothing.
I probably 6 or 7 of the Stone Arch Bridge and St. Anthony Main area, the Hennepin Bridge, the Minneapolis skyline, and then a bunch of the North Shore as well. So it's pretty cool and definitely very reasonably priced. So that was good. So. Yeah, I bought art.
I've been delaying talking about hockey because I know that was a heartbreaking loss last night, but it's time to talk about hockey. Let's get to it. By the way, Vicki Stevens comes to all the shows, and she couldn't be here tonight. I want to thank her for now that she's going to hear a podcast that she doesn't hear live, I just want to thank her for always being here. We really appreciate it.
This is 2 unexcused absences in a row. I mean, she's come to almost 200-something shows. So last week, I'm kind of actually relieved that she's not here this week because last week I was convinced it was because you weren't here. So when she didn't come last week, she's like, well, Jim's not coming, I'm not coming. But now you're back and she's not here. That makes me feel a little bit better.
A little insecure, huh?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So Brian Elliott's leaving this game hurt and Carter Hart's already hurt. So Chuck Fletcher's dealing with his annual goaltending issues. So...
Let's get to the Wild. Do want to thank our long-running sponsor, Twill and the Edina Galleria. I got this shirt. It's a Faraday shirt there the other day. I love it. Check out twillmn.com or twilledina on Instagram.
Jim usually doesn't like to shop for clothes. That's why I'm so glad he's found Twill in the Edina Galleria. He likes shopping there because of the comfortable environment and the friendly staff. He finds clothes that actually fit him properly and are high-quality brands that will look great for years, whether he's golfing or working. Drop by Twill in the Edina Galleria for the best shopping experience and best clothes you'll find in the Twin Cities.
All right, let's get to it. Last night, we were recording this on a Tuesday night. The Monday night game was heartbreaking, devastating. How do you want to put it? Or is it just another loss? You tell me.
I mean, it's awful for the Wild. I mean, you're 7 points out of a playoff spot. You're in a game where you're playing really well, and it's just a stunning. I was just chatting with Parisi, and just about an hour ago. Sorry, Elliot is not hurt. I don't know what I saw there. So if you were freaking out listening at home, Elliot is healthy. I was just telling Parisi that it was the weirdest thing. I watched that last shift like 15 times, and it's like Royce says, that's hockey. It's like, there's really, I guess they could have gotten the loose puck. I guess Stahl or Zuccarello could have blocked that shot, but it's just a double deflection fluke goal. And you kind of felt it coming. That's the only thing I said to Zach was that for the last 2 minutes when they couldn't get over the red line and Spurgeon and Suter couldn't get off, you just had this worry that something bad was going to happen. And they definitely felt like as good as the Wild played for the first 50-something minutes that they were in get to overtime mode. And they didn't get to overtime. And for a team in their position, it's terrible. But it is interesting because, last night was a perfect example of the difference between my job now to my job 2.5 years ago when I was with the Strib. It was like the most stress-free incident that I've covered in a game. I'm like, oh, they just scored with 5 seconds left. I'll just tweet it. It was like, I'm sure that Sarah and Dane were like, it's the worst thing that could possibly happen, especially in a situation where they're probably rewriting their stories to take a win that just became a tie and praying it gets to overtime. So you almost need that little 2 minutes between regulation and overtime to really clean up your story. And then you don't even have that minute because these guys, they have to file the second the game's over. So they are in just freak out mode. And so that's why it's like I got to the locker room and it took them a while to get down there because they had to completely rework their stories. So it was really the first time that's happened in a couple of years since I took this job where all of a sudden it's like I kind of really realized what they had to deal with. So it's obviously just an awful loss, especially considering that the bye is tomorrow or in 2 days. And so we'll see how they play against Detroit. Detroit is the worst team in the NHL, not just in the standings, but probably on the ice, and we'll see. I mean, Detroit always plays well in this building. We saw what happened, the danger of going into a bye week with Dallas the other day. If you fall down early, when you have a bye, when you're about to be off for 10 days, basically, you have a tendency to just say, all right, not playing anymore. And if that happens to the Wild, they're all bets are off on how Bill Guerin's going to react during the bye week and the All-Star weekend.
I know the focus is on the winning goal because it was kind of a bizarre situation. It went to replay and everything else. To me, it was the tying goal.
Yeah.
It was a breaker.
Yeah, it was bad. I think a lot of that is on the coaches. I just don't get why. There just comes a point where you can't play the third pair, and you can't, definitely at home you can't get the third pair stuck out there. The first time against the Barkov line, and the second time against the Trocheck line, and so Patterson, in playing only his 4th or 5th game of the season, he looked like he was rusty on that play, and that's a situational hockey play. They haven't had a ton of practice since he's been back in the lineup, and I think that they made a mistake getting him on there, and then even in the. The one thing I will say about that let's get back to the last-minute goal as well. But then it's obviously a very bad goal by Alex Stalock. It just needs to be stopped. It's hard to rip him because I thought he was really good in the game for a guy that had given up 3 goals before that. But I thought, that's one. And to Alex's credit, he absolutely fell on the knife yesterday and said the 4th goal was on him. And then the final minute, the one coaching thing, and again, you're playing the result. The Wild need to eat those 14 seconds. But Bruce said, after the presser was done yesterday, he and I were just shooting the breeze, and he pointed out that that's where Mikko was really, really missed because he had to go back to the top line because he obviously didn't want, after the way that Fiala and Rask and Dove Zucker played yesterday, he could not throw them out there to defend the last minute, and he didn't want to go with Donato. But that's one where you might want to take obviously you're going to play Parisi. You need the center install, but that's one where you might want to sub out Zuccarello and put in a Greenway who's playing a really good game along the boards and get him out there, or a Hartman that you just know they're going to eat a puck. That they're going to get in that shooting lane and block it. Now again, it's a total fluky goal. It's hard to sit there and blame Zuccarello at all for a fluky double deflection goal, but that's one that's a shot that needs to be fronted and blocked, and that's one where again you're playing the result shouldn't have happened, but that's one where in that situation maybe the coach just needs to go with a Hartman or Greenway on that line, even though he felt like he had to go with Stahl and Parisi there. Take the other winger and put in maybe a more of a fourth line checking type guy. So. And then you get Zuccarello ready for overtime. So, but again, it's just such a fluky play. It's hard to sit there and rip the coach for something so crazily, fluky. And again, it's not like I watched the third period again today. They had 14 or 15 shots. It's not like they were sitting back. Right before Trocheck scored that tying goal, Barkov saved a goal 5 seconds before. So, it wasn't like your normal, the Wild deserved what they got last night. Last night was your real, unfortunate circumstance. And obviously for a team that can't afford those type of things right now.
We'll take live questions anytime you want to come up. Just grab the mic from Brandon and wait for me to signal you, and you can ask whatever you like. We do appreciate live questions. And we also want to reward the people who show up here for these live shows. You have been filling this place, and it's great for us. It's great for Tin Shed, and it's a lot of fun to see you all. We'll also do Twitter questions later. And also want to thank our newest sponsor and one of our biggest sponsors around the network now, Grey Duck Vodka. That's Chad Greenway's company. They are making it big in Minnesota. It's really good vodka. Check it out, Grey Duck Vodka.
When we asked you to get the duck out, wow, did you respond? Grey Duck Vodka is now in over 1,500 locations and expanding every day. This is Chad Greenway, and I just want to say thank you for making Grey Duck Minnesota's vodka. With the wonderful ingredients from Minnesota farmers, Grey Duck is gluten-free and has won 3 gold medals for taste. For all upcoming events and a list of locations carrying Grey Duck, head to greyduckspirits.com.
Please drink responsibly. Grey Duck Spirits, LLC, Lakeville, Minnesota.
Get the duck out.
All right, what else do you want to get to?
Trying to think.
Is there another
much.
News development you want to talk about?
Not really. A couple. I'm just working on. My head's a little bit cloudy because I've been at Starbucks the last 3 hours. I'm working on 4 or 5 big stories all at once, and so it's my head is just spinning on putting stuff in the proper files and all that stuff. And I just spent an hour at Parisi's house working on a really cool story that's going to run early February on him. It was a hoot. Fans will absolutely love that story in The Athletic as long as I write it well. Still working on that Stalock story. Got a really cool story running Friday as long as I write it well, or write it. Not even write it well, write it on Stahl. Kind of posing the question that Ryan Suter brought up about a month ago, asking if he's a Hall of Famer. Talked to a lot of people like that. Talked to Rod Brindamore today. I've talked to a lot of people that have to be anonymous in the story because they're on the Hall of Fame committee, and that they've got to be anonymous when talking about players. The selection committee, and then I'm trying to think today, and then. Talk to Billy Guerin, and that's going to run in the next couple of days on just what his thoughts are on the team going into the break and the and trade deadline and things like that. But the poll today, the player specific poll today, was a real fun read. If you haven't gotten that, Parisi, this last thing they said to me when he got to house, he was like, "By the way, how do I get the cheapest person on the team?" So. He said that everybody in the locker room today was reading all the quotes and reading it. So that's even cooler when you know that the players are all reading it. The one guy I felt bad for was Donato because he was legit defensive about are you kidding me? So if you read it, you know what I'm talking about. So the only other news item I will say that just happened that I was kind of waiting for all day is everybody familiar with the whole Kevin Sawyer, Jared Spurgeon stuff that happened about 3 weeks ago? Everybody in here? No? Wow. So about three weeks ago, Kevin Sawyer, who's the color analyst for the Winnipeg Jets, went on the air and kind of flippantly said that his favorite story about Jared Spurgeon was when he was 16 years old and he was assistant coach with the Spokane Chiefs, and they tied Spurgeon to a pole with saran wrap. And it really blew up people, especially in today's culture, feeling that Spurgeon was abused or hazed. And it definitely was the wrong place, the wrong way to say it. And I've talked to Spurgeon about it. I've been waiting to write the story because I talked to Sawyer last Thursday or Friday, and but he asked if he wanted his next broadcast was going to be tonight, and he wanted to go on the air and apologize. And you know, the one thing I will say about the story that Kevin glosses over tonight is one, he wasn't even, what's really crazy about him putting his foot in the mouth is that he was not part of the story. Jared's the one that told me that that's happened, that the coaches what also made this blow up is the head coach of that team coincidentally was Bill Peters, the coach that was just fired from the Calgary Flames for abusing players and all sorts of stuff that came out about him. But that the coaches and the managers came out of the office sort of at the end, laughed at it, sang him happy birthday, and then was like, all right, boys, cut him down, let's go play. And Spurgeon basically told me, and again, this will be in my follow-up story as long as Kevin now tomorrow calls me to actually let me quote him, is that this was just what Jared said, a quote, 16th birthday thing. It lasted only a few seconds. He didn't feel abused by it. At the time, he was smiling and thought it was funny. It was his 16th birthday. He was a popular player on the team. They saran wrapped him in the pole, all sang him happy birthday, and he was cut down 15 seconds later. He wasn't like a late night hazing thing. He was fully clothed. And then they practiced, and he said it wasn't a big deal then. It wasn't a big deal now. Sawyer wasn't even involved, and that Sawyer also called him to apologize 3 weeks ago. So, I'll write that story. So that's really the only other kind of thing that's going on. His apology doesn't seem to, at least on social media, have caught in legs yet, but I'm sure it will, and I'm sure some people are still not going to be happy about it. But all I can tell you is I've talked to Spurgeon about this on the record too. And while he thought it was kind of ridiculous how flippantly he said it on the air, especially something that he really actually wasn't part of, he said it wasn't a big deal then and it wasn't a big deal now. So, I'm not saying that another teenager wouldn't have been traumatized with this, but Jared assured me that the story was not a big deal. So that I'll write about probably tomorrow.
All righty. And how is Guerin, I know the answer to this, but just to open the subject, how is Guerin feeling about this team? Remind me when the trade deadline is.
February 24th.
Okay, so yeah. And how close do you think he is to saying, okay, got to sell off?
I think that deep down he wouldn't mind a high draft pick and a prospect, but I don't think he's looking at it as necessarily it has to be a sell-off. The context, the only unfortunate thing about me writing the story tomorrow or Thursday is the context of all his quotes is after two huge wins against Dallas and Tampa Bay and not after a meltdown against Florida. But, look, he's not going to buy. That one I can assure you. They're not in a position to buy. Ken, I like how Ken just laughed at that. But what is a sell is the biggest thing. Can you accomplish multiple things? Last year when Paul Fenton sold players, he was trying to gain for the future, but also gain for now. There's ways to do that. There's ways to take picks or prospects. He hasn't decided that. He hasn't decided, he basically, the one thing I will tell you is he said this is not going to be a fire sale. But there are, the reality is that whatever he does, if he makes trades in advance of the February 24th deadline, they're going to be impact players because that's just the way this team is built right now. There's no Group 3 free agent, pending Group 3 free agent that he's going to trade, so not rentals to other teams. So any guy that he's going to trade, with the exception of maybe Mikko, if he was willing to waive his no move, which I don't even know if there's going to be interest or if he would be willing to waive his no move. The reality is that anybody he trades is going to be a decent player with term probably on his contract. So they're going to be significant trades. And so the guys, Jason Zucker is very much potentially being somebody that could be out of here. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the irony, and we've said it on the last several shows, is how ironic it is that Paul Fenton tried all season to trade him last year, and Billy Guerin might come in and actually be the one to do it. If he trades a defenseman, it's going to be a major move. Now, obviously, Brett Hunt's always a possibility, or Nick Seeler, but if he trades Brodin or Dumba, it's going to be a significant franchise-changing move. The one guy I just don't think they should trade, unless it's a no-brainer move, is Marcus Foligno. To me, unless, again, it's a no-brainer move, this guy has found his role on his team. He's somewhat young. Suddenly, while a lot of players get long-term or 4-year deals like him and sort of turn that contract into a bad contract by the obvious decline that happens in the midst of most contracts, he's actually played into his price. If you remember when he signed his 4-year deal at $2.85, we were all like, what the F? And especially when he was a fourth liner and somebody that Bruce Boudreau really couldn't find a role out. Now he's first out on the penalty kill. He's their most physical player, a game-changing hitter, scored some goals. Like next year, if you can have a third line that's Foligno, Eriksson Ek, and Cunnin, that's a pretty good way to start a season. And so I just don't think that they should do it, even though, again, his value might never be higher. And so, again, if it's a no-brainer trade, I think Billy's got to investigate it. But to me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. The one that it sort of just – now, I will preface this by I have not heard that he is on the block. But the one that is in the back of my head, like if he was going to move a young player that's not like a Donato, I just wonder if Greenway's got a shot at being one of those guys. It's even though he's younger than Nino was, it's like sort of his role now is where's he playing on this team? If Foligno is your third liner next season, now all of a sudden Greenway is a fourth liner consistently the last couple of weeks. And even though I think in a lot of lineups he could play higher than that, Nino became a fourth liner on this team. And so you just kind of wonder with Kaprizov coming, if Zucker isn't traded, if Guerin went with one of those young guys, would it be a Greenway? Because I don't think it would be a Cunnin, and I certainly don't think it would be an Eriksson Ek. So that's just sort of just in my kind of reverberating around my head, even though, again, I preface it that I've talked to a lot of GMs in the last, a lot of executives and scouts in the last couple of weeks, and none of them hear Greenway's name out there, which makes you think that he's not. But if all of a sudden teams start looking and say, hey, can we get this guy, it might be somebody they have to consider.
We're going to give away the tickets here in a second. Do want to thank Fixology Repair, fixologyrepair.com. We appreciate their business, and they are in the Skyway in downtown Minneapolis, the Skyway in downtown St. Paul near the Wild offices, Mall of America, which is the mothership, and one in Toledo, if you're ever in Toledo.
Hi, this is John with Fixology Repair. For the better part of a decade, we've been privileged to serve you for all of your jewelry, watch, and smartphone repair needs at the Mall of America. Since Minnesotans largely hate going to the mall, we expanded 2 years ago to reach you in the Minneapolis Skyway. And now this year, we're pleased to announce we have a new location at Wells Fargo Place in the St. Paul Skyway. All 3 shops are equipped to help with your watch and cell phone repair needs on site, while all jewelry, computer, and game consoles will be completed at the Mall of America store. Please bring us your repair challenges, and don't forget to mention the Talk North podcast for a 10% discount on all of our services.
Can you tell what the relationship between Leopold and Guerin is? Is Guerin just completely independent, or does he have to check everything with?
Well, I mean, look, he is somebody that likes to know what's going on, but he is completely independent. I mean, Guerin's told me that. Leopold's told me that. He trusts Guerin to proceed the way that he wants to proceed for this team. So if Guerin wants to tear it down, if he wants to make a sell move, if he wants to, pretty much do anything, it'll be his prerogative to do it. So. But they definitely have a high respect level for each other.
Do any of Fenton's deals look better now than they did a year ago?
Well, you're asking me after Fiala's worst game probably all season. So if I take that out, the Fiala deal for Garrett Ryan looks a lot better, but he's got to get back on track. I mean, this is like 2 straight weeks now of him kind of reverting back to being a turnover machine and just not playing well. But the one thing that I keep on thinking I don't want to sit there and start ripping guys, but Like the one thing that I think that all fans need to just remember when they want to rip the wingers on this team, whether it's Zuccarello, Zucker, Parisi, even though he's on fire right now, or Fiala, is this team up the middle. It's just they don't have center. Like Zucker and Fiala right now were a train wreck last night, and Fiala was awful. But man, they do not have a center, and that's the one. And it happened in practice today, where it looks like Ryan Donato will center the second line against the Red Wings. But I don't know. I said it in the first period last night. I tweeted it that the move needed to change. Like Victor just was not up to par to play with those two, and he just can't keep up. And the line was just so bad. But it wasn't just all Rask's fault. The line was bad. I mean, it was a bad game. And then what were the other trades? I mean, Rask for Nino is sort of a wash at this point. I talked to Brindamore for a story today, and we didn't talk about it, but I almost wanted to say, I'm like, hey, you want to try to do that trade again? You might actually want to at this point. And then Donato for Coyle. I mean, Coyle's going to be there a long, long time. I'm not positive Donato will be. Donato has definite deficiencies in his game, but I would just play the guy. I would just play him. He works his butt off. He competes. He's got a great shot. There's a lot of guys on this team that have deficiencies defensively, and are kind of soft on the forecheck and things like that. Although I got to tell you, I think Donato is willing to go into those high traffic players. But I'm sort of biased. I really like the guy. Bruce obviously sees something he doesn't like. But to me, if you have a choice between Rask and Donato as your second line center, even though it's technically out of position for him in the NHL, I'd like to see Donato with Fiala and Zucker against the Red Wings. Bert,
how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
What's up?
So wanted to add on to the Anthony story from the beginning.
Please.
The one thing you didn't mention was when he was sitting outside and he wasn't using the coaster.
Remember
that?
Yes. She slammed the coaster in front of him and takes his beer and just slams it down. And we're all just kind of like, what the?
Yeah. I asked him, I said, where'd you get the beer? What do they have? He goes, just go up there and stand and the bartender will tell you. And then I got yelled at by her.
He got you yelled at.
Yeah.
He's a bad influence, man. I'm telling you.
So
Trust me.
The question I had, and you're talking about all the stories you're writing for The Athletic, is I know there's certain writers that I read that they don't write any gamers at all. It's all feature pieces. So I was more interested in what freedom do you have to write what you want, or do you get ideas, or how does that work?
I do it differently than everybody at The Athletic. I mean, our thing is not to be a newspaper and write post-game gamers. I just can't get out of the habit. Plus, I've created the expectation by our readers that they're going to get the game stories that I sent them that I did from when I was at the Strib. But you're right. I mean, that is not our thing. And I can tell you, I mean, I see the engagement in the lost game stories. And definitely I see the amount of subscriptions we get off our lost game story. Like last night, me writing that game story, as much as like every subscriber to The Athletic would have been ticked off this morning if there was nothing on a freaking meltdown like that, it was probably not the best use of my time. The better use of my time would be to go home, get some sleep, wake up refreshed, and do all the reporting that I did today on all these other stories. But that's just I can't sit there and watch that game last night. And the other thing I can't do is justify spending all this money to fly around the country and the continent to go to these road games and then leave at 9 p.m. and not write. So, I definitely do it differently than the others. So I do. I mean, we have total autonomy. I mean, that was the one thing that The Athletic told me when I interviewed with Adam Hansman and Alex Mather in San Francisco was you will have total autonomy to cover the beat the way that you want to cover it. And that is the thing that every single one of us has the freedom to do. So that's been absolutely awesome. Now there are certain things that we all like, projects that we all kind of contribute on and things like that, like the poll last week, the national poll, and some people are doing the team specific polls that I did today. But it's total autonomy. And one reason why I'm working on so many stories at once is that it's just the way that things have sort of fallen here, but nobody's telling me to do this. I just, I don't know. The Suter comment, after the game in Chicago where Stahl got his 1,000th point, and he said that he's a sure thing Hall of Famer. When he said it, I was thinking to myself, I don't think that's true. So it'd be kind of a good story to sort of pose the question, give evidence of why, make a case for it, make not a case for it. And so that's the story that I'm writing. He's luckily, like if it was ended today, I don't think he'd be a Hall of Famer. He does have, years left probably as a player. Whether or not he'll be able to get to that point, yes. But he's very much borderline right now. But there are a lot of people that would swear by him, and a lot of people that say no, he's just not. So that's one. The Stalock one, as I said the other day, was supposed to run on Hockey Day Minnesota after his great game the other night against Tampa Bay. I wish I did do that. It would have been a perfect time to do it, but I decided because the team was such in a funk to hold that, and because I've held that, I actually haven't written it yet, so I better get going on that one. The Parisi one will make sense when it comes out, and then the Guerin one, even though I'll be writing something similar, I'm sure in a month closer to the trade deadline, I just thought a lot of fans would want to know what his impression of the team going into the trade deadline. He talks vaguely throughout, I'll be honest, so I'm going to probably be the one that says, all right, here are kind of 5-6 guys, and here are the pros and cons in trading them. But he does talk on the record about Mikko, and he talks on the record about Bruce's future, so that I'd highly recommend people reading that. And I actually might make that my gamer tomorrow. So my story tomorrow might be very much traditionally like the other writers at The Athletic, where, you'll see probably unless something happens in the game that's a must you got to write about, that'll be my gamer tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll just run it late in the day, Thursday. So anyway, I will say the other thing, and that's very different than a newspaper, is like in a newspaper, the big thing is write a great Sunday piece, right? Where at The Athletic, the one thing you'll quickly learn is engagement. It's an app, it's a phone, it's a website. Engagement on Saturdays and Sundays are low. So like that Stahl piece, I'd much prefer it, especially for my own health, to give me time to write it. I'd much rather it run Saturday. But I know that story will get a lot less eyeballs on Saturday. And from my perspective, I write so many stories that if you don't read it Saturday, you're probably going to forget about it. But Sunday, Monday, because it's going to be overwritten by other stories.
So whenever Brian gets back here, we will give away the tickets. Again, you have to be here to register for the ticket giveaway. You have to be here to win. We'll see who the winners are here whenever Brian can get back here and check that out. You mentioned Parisi being on fire. What's been the key for him? Is it simply good health, or is it more than that?
Yeah, but he wasn't on fire for a good month. Mm-hmm. So he went from being the hottest goal scorer in the NHL up until the Kane hat trick in Chicago to not scoring from December 17th to 4 games ago to now he has 5 goals in 4 games again. It really is just the way it goes for goal scorers. I mean, we used to see that with Nino all the time. He'd go into these funks. Goal scorers are just streaky. Who knows why? They just are. Right now, he's absolutely like one area where Parisi has always been effective throughout his career is the power play. And the power play was in a funk for a month. Now the power play again is on fire. And he's got 4 power play goals. He's got a 4-game power play goal streak right now. So he's playing, he's playing well. Again, I was just at his house witnessing how him as a dad, and he's healthy. I was there for hour and a half or something. He didn't put his son Theo down. And
as all fathers know,
yeah,
it's a workout.
Well,
you hold your kids, you walk around with your kids,
especially
like
one that's
ball.
had major back issues a couple of years back. So, I think health is a big thing. He's back on a line with the lone effective center on the team right now, offensively. I mean, Eriksson Ek is obviously, they're probably having their best year as far as the center is concerned. But for some reason, when Eriksson Ek plays with Parisi, it just doesn't work. Parisi's one guy, and again, I'm just saying this, I haven't talked to him about it, but Parisi's one guy that from the moment he got here, he's never really had that high-end center, which is probably, you do wonder between health and having a more offensive center to play with over the years if he would be a much more productive player here.
State Farm agent Tony Hoagland handles my insurance, he handles Michael's insurance. Very easy to work with, app, phone, text, whatever. Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund, your State Farm agent.
Every team knows that the two-point play can be a winning move. That's why State Farm agent Tony Hoagland and his team are here to help you go for two by combining your home and auto insurance. It's a great call that saves you time and money. So go for the win and score savings by combining your home and auto. It's just another way we're here to help life go right. Call State Farm agent Tony Hoagland at 763-421-4900 or online at champlaininsurance.com.
Let's do a few Twitter questions, and whenever Brian gets back here, we'll give away the tickets from Ton Squad 42. Should Bill Guerin trade Eric Stahl? Yes, he's scoring goals, but as far as number one center goes, he can't keep up with the speed out there, and defensively, he's clearly a liability. Do you agree with that part? And what was
I'm sorry, I was just thinking of how I was going to answer it. What did he say about defensive liability?
He said that he can't keep up in terms of speed with better centers.
Yeah, he definitely is in a bit of a funk. I thought he looked better last night. Would he trade him? I'm sure there might be interest. I'm sure he'd consider it. Last year would have been. It's funny because we did talk about this. Just coincidentally, myself and George Richards from the Miami Herald, from the Athletic, Miami. We talked about this in the press room last night because I think he posed the same question to me because Dale Talon is going to buy, and last year would have been the year to trade him. This year, with another year left on his deal, and how weak this team is up the middle, and the fact that, say what you want, he's still on a 30-goal pace, probably a little less right now. But he, like always, he will get back to a 30-goal pace. He'll figure out a way. It just doesn't really – I don't see it happening. This team has no centers that you could kind of throw in that position right now, unless you're going to acquire an Eric Holla who's in big-time trouble right now in Carolina. Healthy scratch night, not getting along with his coach. Not healthy. So I've got to think that he's on his way out of another team. And not that Billy Guerin would think like this, but a cool storyline for next season. But again, this is going to be the last thing that Billy thinks about if he'd ever think about it at all. Is with the Winter Classic here. There's a lot of people, NBC included, that's looking forward to showcasing an Eric Stahl and his family and in his only outdoor game of his career. So like that was a big kind of storyline the day it was announced, is that Eric Stahl's never even played outdoors. So I think it's unlikely.
Fair enough.
As we sit here right now, a month before the deadline.
From our friend Vicki Stevens, who couldn't be here tonight, but hope everything is well with her. This is a question from Philip. That's part of Vicki's job, is to get us questions from Philip. It's actually primarily for me. What would the Minnesota Wild equivalent be to the Twins signing of Josh Donaldson? I think he's either Ralston or Parise. Really good player, consistent winner, good offensive player, a good all-around game, considered to be a good guy in the locker room, but not a superstar.
Yeah. The only difference with the Ralston deal, it was one of the best deals in like NHL history from a bargain standpoint.
Right. And
was he making like 2.5 or something stupid?
Yeah, so it's more like Parise, because Donaldson's not a bargain. He's just a good player.
Yeah. So this Pittsburgh Philly game is kind of fascinating me right now. The pressure, the defensive structure in this game is just so airtight. It's crazy.
I wonder if, Brandon, can we get maybe an ADD medication to sponsor the podcast?
Yeah. I mean, this is, as I said that. Yeah. Last night, I should not tell this, but just to prove yet again that Anthony LaPanta is wrong about jinxes. So last night, I'm reading the media guide, and it says that in Alex Stalock's career, he's had 3-game win streaks. And then he had one this year, earlier this season. But then I was looking at his game logs, and I was counting like 6. And so I went up to the PR guy, and we're looking this up with 5 minutes left in the period, okay? We're looking up what his career best game winning streak is. And basically what we're trying to figure out is, does the NHL on win streaks for goalies only count like decisions if you're a starter, or if one of his 3-game win streaks, or the only one earlier this season, he had 2 wins, then he had a backup situation, and then he had another win. So does that not count as a 3-game win streak because there was a game? It was in a 4-game stretch. So we finally figure out, all right, this is going to be his 6th, and I go sit down. PR guy, I've already delayed him to the point because usually with 5 minutes left in the period, they come up to us, all right, who do you need tonight? So he comes up to me with 5 minutes left, and the second I tell him I want the Ekline, Parisi, and Stalock, boom, tying goal. And then the freaking, like, the game-winning goal with 5 seconds left. And I was half expecting Sickman, the PR guy, to just destroy me in the locker room. Like, how about you ask these questions after the game, or something like that? But he never brought it up again. But I know deep down in the back of his head, he's just like, are you kidding me with that whole situation? It was like, and all that stuff happens to me all the time. It was the other day, too. I looked up something, and the second I looked it up, it just became a non-issue. It was like, anyway. The Panthers wrong.
Theme for the night, yes. Johnson from Wisconsin, could you ask Michael why the Wild hasn't traded one of their D-men yet and who will go? Sealer is rotting in the press box. Patterson is now healthy and has a terrible contract. Hunt would bring firepower to any listless team on the power play. Brodin or Dumba for ridiculous haul. Any of that possible?
What?
Should they trade any D-men?
What was the Simpson thing? Can you repeat the things about
should or will they trade any D-men?
Yeah, I do think there's a chance. I mean, as the reader just, or as the Twitter follower just said, I mean, obviously they got 2 extra guys in Hunt and Steeler. Patterson had a really poor game last night, but he had been playing well. Hunt is not ready to go. He had influenza B. So he is, he's just not ready. I mean, that thing's been going around the locker room for a month. Which is probably one reason why they've really struggled. I know not a lot of guys have missed games, but they've been depleted energy-wise. So Hunt's not ready. So is Sealer getting in tomorrow or Patterson playing? My guess is Patterson is playing again because their penalty kill had been good up until last night. I just don't think that Patterson did enough to come out. So do you trade Sealer out of charity because you're ruining his career here, or do you let him stay because he's a quality young player that's physical, that is on a very cheap contract? A lot of GMs would choose that, and same thing with Hunt. Hunt was having a great year up until he was a healthy scratcher pattern coming back, and then he got sick. So, it's not necessarily that they're coming in now. In terms of Brodin and Dumba, a lot of teams were calling on Brodin. A lot. I've mentioned it in my stories. Carolina was one. 100% Carolina wants Brodin. Vegas is looking at Brodin. Vegas has even started, according to my sources, revisited things on Zucker right now, as is Pittsburgh. I could tell you for a fact that Pittsburgh is doing due diligence on Zucker, big time. I know he's not a defenseman, but I'm just popped in my head. They are doing the background due diligence that's getting back to me, which just means that they're checking up on his life. And then another team that I'm just assuming, but I don't know, is Toronto would be interested in Brodin. And then there was another team I heard about the other day that I wrote about. Carolina, Toronto, Vegas. It'll pop in my head. I guarantee you the team we're watching right now would probably be interested in Philly. Who's the other team that called in? I wrote it the other day. Anybody remember? Anybody read me?
We'll get back to that.
There was a fourth team. But anyway, but now Carolina, with the Hamilton injury, I'm being told that they might have switched courses to looking for a right shot guy, and I don't get the impression that guy's Dumba. Dumba's a issue right now because you are trading at bottom dollar if you moved them, and so that's dangerous unless you could find somebody that's willing to give you a haul just because of what they project him to be. But I think it's not just that he's having a tough year. I think people are worried that injury might adversely affect him long term, and so it'd be hard to trade him. But it'll just be interesting how they handle this Brodin situation. I think that he would be the most likely to go because he's also a year from UFA. So the question is, what's he going to need on a re-signing? It's just a tough call with him because you got to figure out what you project him at, and if all of a sudden he's a $6.5 million defenseman, can you stomach paying somebody like him that type of money when he brings almost no offense? So I mean, kind of like Granlund, where Fenton felt like he should have needed to get in front of it and trade him before he was a pending UFA. Guerin might feel like he has to do the same thing with Brodin, especially if that's the guy that you can get a lot of return for. The reason why Carolina makes a lot of sense to me is because I do think you could pick off either a top prospect or a player off that team, probably definitely get Holla in that deal right now. And Bruce might want that at this point. But they have 2 first-round picks. So, like, to me, if I'm dealing with Carolina, I demand a first-rounder in that deal. So just knowing that they have 2.
Reminder, the tickets we're about to give away are coming from Brian and Tin Shed, not our show. We appreciate him contributing them and giving them away. Our next live shows here, our plan is February 5th and February 12th. Those are both Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. You can find out more about Tin Shed and Savage at tinshedmn.com or on Facebook at Tin Shed Tavern Savage. Tin Shed Tavern Savage. On Instagram, it's Tin Shed Tavern, long dashes between. They hold birthday parties here. They have events like this. They have sports teams coming in, company holiday parties. They have the jumbo pretzels. We see people getting hernias carrying around. They have the pot pie, tuna burgers. Check out tinshedmn.com to find the coupons, the happy hour deals, the buy one, get one free offers. They are now also doing the Take and Bake Pizza fundraising, which is great for sports teams and other organizations, and they give you a 50-50 revenue split. You can also order online at tinshedmn.com/online ordering. And if Brian wants to mention anything else, he should feel free to, but let's give away those tickets.
All right, thanks, Jim. Quick reminder, thank you for everybody coming out again and supporting the Tin Shed and supporting the show. I know Michael, Jim, and I really appreciate it. The only way to get entered is to be here for the live show, and the only way to win is to be here on the nights when we draw like tonight. So hopefully the lucky person is here to claim these.
Brian is blindfolded and fumbling around looking for the winner right now.
Jason Malley.
Ah! Look at that.
Oh, there
right
we go.
next to
Jason, I knew you were here.
I never win anything. Baloney.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for coming out so
Yeah, what
often.
are
We
the
appreciate
chances?
it. And thank you, Brian, for giving it away. I appreciate it very much. If anybody has, yes, there we go, Ken. Fire away.
Counselor?
Well, you anticipated a number of my questions on the trades and so on, but and obviously center is a real problem for us when you have somebody as slow as Rast trying to center Zucker and Fiala. Do we have any centers? I mean, I don't see many centers down in the system, number one. Number two, okay. So then, to me, the two of the most disappointing players for the Wild this year are Greenway, who occasionally looks like the power forward you want. And many times you think, boy, at the end of the game, I know Greenway must have been out there, but I don't remember him doing anything. And the second one, who we have for another 4 years at $6 million, is Zuccarello. Comments?
Well, first of all, on centers, the one that just popped in my head right away is Hovenoff, and I know it's Hovenoff now, not Kovanoff, after doing my Straight from the Source podcast yesterday with Torchetti. Or Sunday I did that, I think. Yeah, Sunday. That was a fun day. Having Torch and and Rhonda over, and then we went to Lake Elmo Inn and grabbed a bite and just talked hockey. I love talking hockey with him. If you haven't heard that podcast, it's just like the wicked Boston accent. It's just mesmerizing. The last thing of the question, somebody asked on Twitter, is like, can you just have him say Ryan Cotta just once? And that's how he ended the podcast. It was him. He goes, Cotta, you're up. So, but he loves Hovenoff. But the really interesting thing that he said yesterday that to me now commands an article is he basically, if you listen to the full version, not the just the ad-free one that's on Spotify, or not the ad-free one, the ad-free one's on the Athletic app. If you listen to the full version, not the abbreviated, he said this in the last 10 or 15 minutes, that Hovenoff last year at the end of his season in Moncton essentially threatened to go play for, guess what, CSKA Moscow this year, to leave the Quebec League and go play there. And what he basically said to me is that he guarantees that if he comes to training camp next year and is sent to Iowa, that he would probably go back to Russia. And this is a 19-year-old. And even the last thing that Torchetti said to me when we were leaving Lake Elmo Inn at night that night was he said to me, if Guerin's smart, especially if they're not in the playoffs, that at the end of the Quebec League season, that they should bring him right to Minnesota, because he's signed, remember, right to Minnesota and not put him in Iowa. That would be a bad last impression going back to home during the summertime. I just, he knows the kid, but I don't agree. Like to me, he should go play in the playoffs for Iowa. I mean, that team's good. That team, he could add a lot. And that's a great bunch of guys down there. So that'll be an interesting thing to just pay attention to. And the other interesting thing, if you listen to the podcast, is he sounds not Sokolov-esque, but he's got the same Sokolov issues in terms of maybe immaturity right now, attention to what he eats. I could appreciate. But honestly, it sounds like he's got to, that weight is a bit of an issue. So he's a heck of a player. I watched him a lot in the World Juniors. He's got a cockiness to him. I was talking to Garen about this on the phone about 3 weeks ago about I asked him, how do you think NHLer is going to handle it if he starts doing some of these antics, like he scored against Sweden, skating right in front of their bench, or doing the moose thing that he does. Like I didn't realize the genesis of the moose. Like he does this moose celebration, which I just thought it's kind of like Kuznetsov's bird celebration, but apparently it's like their big rival Moncton is the Halifax Moosehead, and it's his way of basically taunting. Taunting they're the biggest rival. I'm just like, wow, holy mackerel. He does this just go on YouTube. It's funny. Another thing to go on YouTube and watch is look up John Turchetti's KHL videos. There's one video where he is mother effing the entire bench for 50 seconds in English with all these Russians on the bench. And he is just screaming about it. It's about effing compete, and this game's about and he is just going back and forth. And it is honestly, I sat there and I watched these videos. I didn't know they existed, and they pulled them out to show me last night. Oh, man, it was funny. So, what was the rest of your question? Don't make me rip Zuccarello, please. Remember. That one guy. Please don't. My arch nemesis listens to this podcast, and anything I say, he comes after me about. And
there's only one?
Huh?
There's only one?
Yeah, I know. No, there's a Zuccarello fan out there that gets wind of any time I say anything negative. I mean, look, Zuccarello, yeah, I mean, he's 32 years old. He's got 4 years left at $6 million. At the end of the contract, it's the issue. My biggest concern with the contract is, and I just think it was an egregious thing, because I just think that no matter where a GM is in his standing inside an organization, you always have to, integrity tells you always have to think about the long-term future of the franchise. Like that, you could be frustrated with Chuck Fletcher all you wanted, but he, knowing his job on the line, did nothing to hurt at the end, save his own job that would essentially cost this team down the run when he knew he would probably no longer be the GM. And Paul Fenton, just to make sure he got Zuccarello done, just gave him the no move. And that's going to cost them a young player. I mean, unless Guerin figures out a way to just say to, Parisi or it'd be Suter, it'd be Zuccarello, and it would be Spurgeon with no moves when Seattle comes in 2 years. Unless he could somehow convince Parisi or Zuccarello to just, hey, Seattle's not going to take you, you waive your no move to help us protect this guy, then what I'm saying is all moot. But look, I mean, it potentially could cost them a young player because they have to protect Zuccarello. And then with Greenway, I don't disagree. But the one thing, again, I'll caution is he's 22, 23 years old. He's dealing with a lot of stuff that young guys do. He's living on his own for the first time, not in a college dorm setting or a college frat setting. He's learning to be a pro. A lot of young guys in the NHL go through these spurts of inconsistency, and he is the one guy that I could tell you for a fact that Alex Stalock has said to him a lot recently. Do you understand how good you can be? And because Stalock thinks the absolute world of him. The other thing that Stalock tells me is that you would not even believe how smart this guy is. Like the conversations that he has with him, he says the guy's just, secretly genius. And so he's just got to come out every night and play the way he's tried to the last couple of games where he's trying to make an impact. Being on the fourth line is absolutely a wake-up call for somebody like this. He's also, again, not stupid, so he also sees that if he wants to stay here, he saw what happened to Nino last year. Next stop after the fourth line is the press box. Next stop after the press box, Iowa. The next stop after all that is traded. So he realizes that where the depth chart is, and he's playing on. It's interesting because as good as that, the geek line was, Foligno's playing the way that you wish Greenway would have played on that line, right? So it's kind of interesting.
I always tell people that you're secretly a genius.
Yeah, very secretly.
From Kyle Bondstrom, this is an interesting question. Do you think that guaranteed contracts in hockey lessen the product on the ice, forcing fans to watch older, slower players on long-term deals where the NFL can cut at any time, thus ensuring the best players be on the team?
Yeah, but that'll never happen. I don't like that either. I just think it's horrible that you could sit there and just fire people the way that actually, I guess a lot of the average fan would not agree with that because anybody can get fired any time at their regular job. But I just think that in a day and age where these guys sign long-term deals, that a contract means absolutely nothing in the NFL. Now, the difference is that in the NFL now, because contracts mean absolutely nothing because they're not guaranteed, is that now these guys get so much money in guaranteed contracts if you're a good player that at least you're given a bit of a safety net. In the NHL, it's another problem. You are, where the people I feel bad about are the fans, because if you make a mistake as a GM, it's just incredibly difficult to remedy that situation. And then you have the situations in guys like Parise and Suter where the league then retroactively comes in and punishes the team, where, as I've said a gazillion times on this team, on this podcast, is that you have to really be afraid if you're Billy Guerin to even consider trading a Parise or a Suter because their cap recapture, and I got to be careful the way that I say this because I don't want the league to listen to this and think that I'm giving people ideas or saying that some lack of integrity stuff is going to happen in 3 or 4 years. But Parise and Suter, if they're traded somewhere else, one, their cap recapture clock almost starts immediately, so you're really dinged if you're the Wild and they retire somewhere else. But you're also more likely, if you're Parise and Suter, when you're suddenly making $1 million salary, to just say, all right, I'm done in 4 years. Or at least here, you might play the game. This is where I got to really be careful, but all of a sudden, you got a career-ending injury, and now you're at least protecting the franchise if you have to prematurely go. Again, the league is not going to just let you say my back hurts. They're going to examine you to make sure that nothing bad is going on. But
it's
just a tough situation. Guaranteed contracts. It's just why it's the pressure that GMs are under too. It's like you have to give Zuccarello that 5-year deal at $30 million and a no move clause if you want him, because then he'll just go somewhere else. And so, I'm not guaranteeing that he had that type of offer elsewhere, but that's the problem, is that if you don't do it, then somebody else gets him. And so in the case of Parise and Suter, you can all rip the Wild all you wanted for giving him 13 years, 98. But if you've read the reporting that I've written for many, many times on them, the Wild were offering less money, and they were one of 7 or 8 teams willing to go that length. And some teams like Philly were willing to go to 15 on Suter, 15 years. So they were just, and we saw it, by the way, if you didn't believe what I wrote, 2 weeks later, they gave Weber a 14-year offer sheet. So it's the price of doing business. If you want that player, you better do it. So but knowing full well that you better win a cup on the front end of it, or it's going to eventually cost you at the back end of it, because no deal. I don't care if Parise and Suter came here and were bona fide superstars on a 13-year deal, they weren't going to be the same players that they were in year 1 through 5, let's say. So
exactly. And I cover all the sports, and I'd rather see a system like the NHL's than the NFL's, where players can just get abused. The NFL has that system because they've had terrible representation throughout the history of the league, and because they have short careers and they're desperate to get on the field. This way, hey, it's on the GM and the owner to make a good decision. If you don't, tough.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hey, thank you to everybody for coming out. Great crowd as always. Thank you to Brian for giving away the tickets. Once again, thank you to Twill, Grey Duck Vodka, Fixologyrepair.com, Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent, and Tin Shed, of course. Next live shows February 5th and February 12th at 7 p.m. And we also not only appreciate you showing up, we appreciate the people who patronize our sponsors who have helped us grow to this level. So thank you to everybody. Thank you for coming out, and please give Michael a hand.
City built on a hillside, music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice, and I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive